Okay, so now let's talk about the baking workflow for our meshes. I am here in a new project folder named 09 Bakings. So let me show you the project structure. I have Geo, I have the Lion Serpent, the high res, and then the low res. I have my textures folder already linked in. And I have Baking Blend and Baking Blend.1, which is a backup. So let me just delete that one. And let me launch Blender. Blender baking.blend. Now we're here in Blender. Let me show you how we import everything. It's pretty much the same OBJ workflow we used in the previous video. So let me move this a little bit to the side and let me call it until here. And I wait a little, and that took a little bit to load, about 20 seconds. But now that we're loaded, it's all fine. Now I want to show you this part in here. As you can see, I've matched the high res and low res for the import, mainly because if we can see here in our file explorer, we can see that they both have the same Lion Serpent name. So if I were to say Lion in the low res, it would load both, and then it would load them again for the high res. So for this I just put the low res in all caps, which is this one, and then the high res in all caps, which is the larger one. And I just added the prefix low res and high res. As you can see here, they both have the same no name, but now Blender added a 0.001 to the high res, mainly because the prefix operation happens after the import, so you have to take this one into account when you load. So if I were to load them again, it will say 0.2 and 0.3, and this will make the name longer and longer than it needs. So for baking we need very short names, at least I think the Blender's limit for character names is about 60 characters or maybe 45, so around 30 characters should be fine for loading and for baking. But anyways, let's move on to the next word I want to show you, and it's a very important word. It's the resolution of our bake. So I set the baking to 2K res, so it will bake in a 2048 map. But if I say 1K res, it will bake in 1024, 2048, and 4K res, it will bake a 496 map. You can add a different words. You can see the source code for these words. It's just I think it's 3 words long. But anyways, calling these words sets the resolution for our bake. By default, the word is set to 2K. So whenever you want to bake, if you don't call any resolution words, you will get a 2K map. So let's see the actual process for baking. First, we need to select the high res meshes, and then we need to select the low res meshes. And if I run this, you can see that we have high res and the no name, and then we have low res and no name. So corresponds to these two. These two will be on the stack, and then we call one of the baking words. It could be bake high low, it could be bake same, or it could be bake match. So let's start with bake high low up here, and I'll run it and then wait for a while as it uses the cycles engine for baking. So let me just run it, press F5, and I'll see you in a few minutes. And that's the bake done. It's being about 20 seconds, so it was pretty short. I'm running here a Ryzen 5 machine, and it's the first generation one, so it should be about the mid-range machine that you will be using in this day and age. So let's see what our results are here in our file explorer. And now I have a new folder named map, and I noticed that I have my normal map and my ID map, but I am missing a few maps, namely the cavity map and the derivative maps. So why is that? Well, The main reason might be because the name is too long. So I will change the name, let's see, to high-res lion serpent, and then the low-res one to low-res lion serpent. Lion serpent. So now that I've changed the name, let me try bake again. But first, let me run image clear all, so any previous baked image is erased. And let me paste it here, and let me bake it, and I'll see you when it's done. Okay, so that took a while, and the reason had to do with the names and the fact that Blender just goes and adds a 0.00 NA number to a repeating image. So all I had to do was just save and close and reopen Blender, and now it baked properly. So let me show you how it looks like. Now we have a normal map, we have our cavity map, and we have our ambient occlusion, our curvature, and our ID, which is just a black because this has no color. So that one works just fine. Now let me just come here and comment this. I'll just remove the pound debugger here, or rather, let me just come here and delete this, and I'll keep my comments and uncomment the next one, which is bake same. And what bake same does is just bake when there's no high-res model. So for example, if you are using a low-res to low-res, or if you are using a high-res to high-res, you will still want to have these maps here, the curvature and the normal and the ambient occlusion and the IDs. So what you do in that case is just use bake same. So the only thing you need to do is just select your mesh. Here I'm using the low-res mesh, and I'm calling solo, so I just want to see this mesh, and I'm calling bake same. So let me run it, and after a few seconds I'll come back to you. Okay, so my baking is done, but you may notice that my mesh is gone. And that is mainly a problem with Blender where the 0.001 mesh name it's appended, and by the end of the bake same we delete all the meshes that have that postfix. So the simplest thing to do is just re-import everything, or again just close and reopen your Blender. So let me just call my low-res import obj pre again. So let me just Control V and run it, and I have my lion again, and you can see it's now 0.003. So the one that got deleted was the 0.002. So I'll just call it lion serpent. So now that the baking is done, let me see the map that was generated, and right off the bat you can see that our normal is just flat because we baked from the same source. Same thing with the ambient occlusion, although it has a little bit of the Blender ambient occlusion laid in, but the cavity is a normal, it has been baked normally because it uses the shader that comes with Blender for cavity. And same with the ID, it's nothing because we had no color. So now let's move on to the final baking word, and let me delete this part here and uncomment this and fix this one. So the final bake word is bake match, which just has a little bit of a special behavior. First of all, if it can find a part of a name of your low-res mesh in the high-res mesh, it will bake the low-res mesh on that high-res mesh. If it can't find the name of the low-res mesh on the high-res mesh, it will bake using the low-res mesh. This serves so as to match parts. So for example, if you have a mesh that it's named A, and then you have a high-res that's named high-res A, it will match A to A and B to B and C to C and so on. If it can't find, it will match to itself, so it will bake to the low-res or whatever mesh it is. So here let me just run it for a second, and I'll come back to you with the results. Okay, so it's done baking, and we found the high-res mesh because it's named Lion Serpent. And despite having the high res and this one having the low res, it found it and it baked using that mesh. So if we see here in our file explorer, we can see that our normal, it's back again to the detail normal. Same thing with our other maps. So our ambient occlusion is back, our curvature is also back, same with our cavity. Our ID is still the same,